everybody. Welcome to everyone here and people that are zooming in. I'm chairing tonight for the first time ever, so bear with me. I just had my computer crash, so I'm borrowing Erica's. So I'm calling the select board meeting to order at 6:30 on June 23rd, 2025. Chip, will you please read the rules of procedure?
So Vermont's Open Meeting Law 1 VSA 312H requires that the public be given a reasonable opportunity to express opinions on matters considered by the board, provided order is maintained under reasonable rules set by the chair. The select board invites public comment on each agenda item, an approach designed to support public engagement and meaningful participation in the board's decision-making process. To help keep the meeting on track, time limits will be applied. Comments should remain focused on the agenda items being discussed.
Okay, thank you,
You
Chip.
get it?
Are there any changes to the agenda order?
Tara, I have a suggestion. Maybe
Okay.
we should move the Weatherhead Hollow discussion and potential vote to the first order of new business rather than the last, since Jen's
Okay,
here.
oh yes,
I
that's,
see Catherine is here too.
okay, so the first
So,
no order of
second?
new business.
Okay.
Yes, and that'll be Weatherhead Hollow. Okay,
I
do I need to
don't
make a
know,
motion?
does maybe the board needs to vote on that, Zon?
Yeah, I'd like to
Let's-
make a
yeah.
motion to move, agenda item E to agenda item E in new business. Or actually, we're gonna move it to A in new business and then we'll shift everything down. Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Miranda. Okay, and now, it's public comment time and announcements.
Well, we have to vote on
Have
it.
to vote
Oh,
on it.
yes, we did. All right,
Do a roll
so
call.
since we're hybrid, we're gonna do a roll call. Veranda, what say you?
Aye.
Chip,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
and Tara says aye. All right, so now moving on to the public comments area and announcements. Is there any public comments online or in the crowd? No? No one online? Hi, Kyle. All right, so we will move on to the approval of the minutes. I make a motion to approve the minutes of 6/9/25. Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, so, can I, is there any discussion about that? No? All right, let's do a vote. Veranda,
Aye.
Chip,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
and Tara says aye. All right, so now we are going to, the finance portion, which is an action, and I'd like to make a move to accept the warrants as written.
Well, we need to add something
Oh.
to the warrants.
We do. Where did that go? We need to add it before. So, I'd like to make a motion to add,
Yeah.
an expense warrant 2524F for $85 for fishing and hunting licenses. Can I get a second on that?
I'll second
Aye.
Okay, so let's vote on that. Veranda,
Aye.
Chip,
Aye.
Mike,
that. Aye.
and Tara says aye. Now we will go forward with the warrants. Payroll week ending 6/15/25 was $10,529.78. Payroll week ending 6/22/25 was $8,676.33. Expense warrant number 2524 was $41,681.16. And the new total with the added expense warrant 2524F is $60,972.27. Is there any discussion about that?
You need to make a motion.
I need to make a motion to approve it. Can I get a second?
I'll second
Okay. Veranda? Do we
Oh.
discuss now?
Aye.
Hi.
Oh, was there any discussion about the
No, we need to
warrants?
discuss and then approve,
No
right?
discussion.
Okay. All right, sorry, everybody. So, Anson Baldwin was $4,400 for tree removal on Sweet Pond and Merrineck Road. Innovative Solutions for chloride is $8,815.62. Jack of All Blades, $1,800, a repair on a 2022 dump truck. Roberts Energy is diesel and heating oil for the garage. That was $2,312.28. VLCT and passive, $14,628.79. That's our quarterly liability insurance payment. $1,870.84 is coming back from the Guilford Volunteer Fire Department. Expert Lawn Care was $1,585. That's 1 month of mowing 4 properties, and the Playscape Spring Cleanup was extra. So I'd like to move to accept the warrants as written.
I'll second.
Okay. Mike, wanna vote?
Aye.
Chip,
Aye.
Miranda,
Aye.
and Tara says aye. All right, so now we're on to updates and reports. And Erica, the town administrator, is first up.
Okay.
Who?
Not funny.
Could be heat, yeah.
Only
Could
takes
be
a
heat.
little bit to throw me off.
Could be heat based.
Okay, so. Okay, the first thing that I would like to say that I did in the last 2 weeks is I worked with Dan Ingold, our Emergency Management Director, and Wyndham Regional Commission to get that 911 map that's on the wall over there. It has everybody's address, and the emergency management team is dividing Guilford into hubs and making some great additions to this map. They're also doing it in a meeting that they're gonna have at the fire station, but there's a town office version too for people to come and look at. I think that's really cool and exciting, and Wyndham Regional totally rocks. Ellie and I attended a meeting with folks from Acrisure, which is the consultants for healthcare consulting that VLCT is offering to all of their members. We got an overview of what their service is. It's basically just they look at a town's health insurance and what their needs are and what their current situation is, and they try to match it, but for hopefully cheaper. And their service costs $500 upfront plus $15 a month per person enrolled. We have 8 enrolled employees, so that would be approximately $2,000 a year. We're going to learn a bit more about them before I present their information to the select board. There's another webinar tomorrow that you all are welcome to go to if you want to. Their product is called Captive Insurance, right, Ellie?
I'm not sure if that's their product, but that's the
One of-
type of.
Yeah, the type of insurance. So we're in the beginning process of learning about what that is all about. We had with Colin from Wyndham Regional, who is our project manager for the Slate Rock Road Culvert project. Chip and I attended, and Jimmy and my assistant Lorena attended the selection committee meeting for engineering consultant on the Slate Rock Road Culvert project. And we did our rankings, which was a really interesting process. It's all prescribed by VTrans in a very specific VTrans way. And we all were in agreement with the top contenders. So the next thing to do will be for Colin to send them a request for more specific details and a cost proposal. And that will come to the select board for approval or editing, or whatever the select board decides. So, there's something else. Oh, something important. Open meeting law changed a little bit. Zon. Zon knows this. Would you like to tell us about that more? No?
I couldn't
Okay, so I
describe
have
the details, how it's gonna affect.
I have a small list from VLCT. The biggest change for us will be that recordings are now due to be posted along with the minutes, 5 days after the meeting, and not when the minutes are approved. That's a substantial new change. And that is just for non-advisory bodies. A couple other changes, they defined undue hardship. You know, there was a clause in there that said, well, we want you to record things, but you don't have to if there's undue hardship, but now they've defined what undue hardship means. It's financial and staffing issues, as VLCT already expected. There's, you know, a more exception spelled out for field visits for non-advisory bodies, like if the select board went on site to view something, they wouldn't have to be recording at that. Some towns are allowed to post notices in neighboring towns if there aren't enough public areas in that town. We don't have that problem here. Agendas are required to have sufficient details on specific business to be discussed. Looking at their examples, I think we're in pretty good shape doing that already. There is a requirement to vote to exit executive session and not just when to enter it. We are already doing that. There's two new allowances to enter executive session. One is for cybersecurity, if it's jeopardizing public safety, and there is new definitions for disturbances that may come up at a meeting. I think that's it. That's my report for today.
Okay, does anyone have any questions, any discussion for Erica? No? Okay, then we will move on to Mr. Jim Freeman, the Highway Commissioner. We'll hear what he has to say. Hi.
Hello. Nothing super exciting since last time. We will, however, the rain has taken a serious toll. The roads held up pretty good, but some of them are beat now, and not surprising with rain twice a week and substantial amounts of it. So later in the week, we'll be back out on Heinsberg Road, River Road, Stage Road, Carpenter Hill, and look around after that. So just give people a heads up. Anson, we'll put him away for a while. There's plenty more dead trees, but it's hot. We have other things we do this time of year, so pick that back up later in the year. Hopefully when it's cooler.
Okay.
Hope for a cool fall. We will be replacing culverts. This town has, I don't know exactly, 2,100 and change for culverts, and a lot of them are old, galvanized, that have rusted out, and so we do a certain amount a year, time permitting. We'll focus on that for the next couple of months, and those are all over town, so there will be signage out, just another heads up that will be in the road. And we usually communicate with Erica and have her put it on website, you know, and typically we close the road, we give ourselves from 8 to 1. Typically, we're not closed for more than 2 hours. But just in case something goes wrong, you hit ledge, whatever. So typically it's much faster. And most people are great with it, and some people are annoyed by it. It's a necessary thing, and there are many of them. So
Like how far in advance will you know which roads will be closed?
we usually put it on a day or two, but sometimes, you know, like on a Monday, we'll say this week, you know, we're gonna close this road on Tuesday, this one on Wednesday, between here and here. We try to communicate that. And usually there's always a way out. If it's a dead end, I try to call the people on that road ahead of time and try to communicate as much as possible. There's a lot of places where it's not a big deal.
Right.
You know, the start of Carpenter Hill, we can go Barney Hill, we can go down Bonnievale. again, most people are like, oh, great, you're fixing
Right.
the road, you know, great to see you out there. And other people are absolutely, this is the way I go, and they're annoyed with it, so. And then we always try to, let all the people go to the school and get out before we, tear that up. So typically we'll close at 8 to 1 and we'll really be closed 9 to 11. So, and at least get one half where you can get by and all that. So, this is the time.
Right.
So, this is the, let's see, the third week of our new employee, day 1 of his third week. I had him in the mower this morning because I've always mowed and I just can't. That would be like hiding out to go mow, would be pretty easy. But I can't really do that. So, this afternoon he mowed alone. So, that goes on all summer long. It takes 3 months to go around once and try to go around the roads that we do first a couple times. So, the mower will be out there. You can't miss it. Big orange thing, lots of lights, signage. So that'll be our summer pattern for the next couple of months. So that's all I have.
All right. Any
All right.
questions for Jim?
Quick question.
Yes,
Jim, what's the name of the new guy?
Jerry Malello,
Okay.
and he's from West Brattleboro.
Thank you.
All right.
Good.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, next we have our state representative, Zon Eastes.
Thanks, Judy.
Very exciting. Hi, Zon.
How are you doing?
Good.
All right, so here's the first time for me in this chair. Yeah. Good. So I thought what I would do is just give you a little bit of background about a few things, and then talk about some bills that are passed that I think are probably the most important ones for folks here in town to know about. Does that make sense? And if anybody has any questions along the way, please feel free to ask. All right.
Mm-hmm.
When I was out door knocking last year before I got elected, I would say it's interesting. The topics that I heard about most are the same topics that most people heard about in the state of Vermont. I bet you can all name them. They're affordability, the attempt at regulating tax liabilities across the state, the education system, and so affordability kind of leaks through all of these issues. Dealing with taxes. Dealing with the education system, as its current system, the one we have now is not sustainable and it's not working from a financial point of view all across the state. Healthcare costs are completely out of whack, and we all know that, and harming small businesses. And I didn't hear about this one so much here, but I definitely, in my own work, was aware of it in other ways, and that's housing and how it. The fact that Vermont has not had significant housing starts in the state for the last 25 years. And that's not in one particular sector. It's all up and down the entire spectrum of housing. So those are, that was a big issue. And then I think one other thing that people talk to me about, and also I heard about from my colleagues at the legislature, is the notion that let's just get a government that works here. Let's have more collaboration. Let's get some work done, actually. And so using that as a backdrop, I want to describe to you in a second here some of the bills that have passed and some of the work that got done. I also want to acknowledge that we're all listening very intently and waiting about these federal impacts that are going to come our way based on budgets that are currently, for instance, the big beautiful bill that's currently in the Senate right now. Don't know the timing about how that's going to come. We don't know the exact impacts that are going to happen yet. It's true that nothing has come down from the federal government that's actually impacted the state of Vermont's budget. We certainly hear stories about organizations that are having trouble all over, or people that are being affected, and those are very real issues. But the fact is that the state's budget hasn't been addressed. So when we created the budget that we created for the next fiscal year, we had to do it as if there were no impacts. We couldn't possibly guess what the impacts might be. And so I'm anticipating, I think we're all anticipating there's going to be a budget redo as we go along in here somewhere. I don't know exactly what that will look like, but once we know more about what the federal impacts are. So that's a big kind of cloud hanging out there. Then I just want you to know that in the legislature in this year, I think it's pretty standard, there are 679 bills introduced to the legislature. And what that means is I or any legislator can introduce a bill. And once it's introduced, it's read on the House floor and then it gets handed to a committee. So 679 bills were divided somehow or other between the Senate and the House, and each of those bills is handed to a committee. Every one of those bills goes up, it's called the wall, and every room has a bulletin board, every committee, and all these bills are sitting up on the wall, and one by one they come down for committees to deal with, and then the bill begins to move through the House. There's no way that the House or the Senate is going to ever address anything close to 679 bills. We closed the session with 100 bills being passed. So about 1 in 7 bills actually get even looked at and addressed. So there's a lot of energy about how to make things better in Vermont, or ideas that individual legislators have, or groups of legislators, but what actually gets done is about 1 in 7. And that's interesting to note that when we look at the budget, all the budget requests for this year, the budget that just got passed is about 1 in 7 of the requests for budgets. $1 for every $7 of requests. So the state is has to limit what it can spend and has to make hard choices. And we're doing that all the time. 97 of those 100 bills passed, meaning that the governor signed them. So talking about a functioning government, there you go. 3 bills, he vetoed 3 bills. Actually, he vetoed 5, but 2 of them were in the day-to-day workings of the House, and so the fact that he vetoed them just meant it was an ongoing discussion. Then it came to a different solution. Then he also has the option. The governor has the option of just allowing a bill to go into enactment without his signature. He did that on one choice, so it's not a big deal. I was very disappointed. I'm on the Human Services Committee. I was very disappointed that the big, huge work that we did in the Human Services Committee, a bill to address homelessness in Vermont, was the major bill that the governor vetoed this year. And there's not enough force in the House to override a bill like that. So that would require 100 votes, and there isn't enough force. So that bill died. And so now if it's going to be resurrected in any way, it'll have to just be start over as a new bill next year. All right, so looking at, that's kind of the background I'd like to give you, and then talk just about a few of the bills that are actually going on. So going back to these 5 issues: lowering taxes, education system, healthcare, housing, and working in a collaborative government. I want to just acknowledge that it's my view that with all the bills that have gone through the House, it's not. I don't think any citizen in Vermont should expect that their taxes are going to go down at any point, except on occasion that will happen, but not as a general rule, because costs constantly go up. So what the word that got to be developed is not that we would lower taxes, but that we would stabilize expectations so that there wouldn't be these 14-15% jumps that some communities have been seeing in the last few years. And it's my view, I don't understand everything. That's another thing that I've learned. I mean, there are 150 people in the House, 600 bills we're looking at. I can't possibly know, personally, I can't know everything. I've learned to trust a lot of people and the wisdom of people that have been there a long time and people that really know more about how this whole situation runs. So looking at the bills that have passed, it seems like taxes should expect, we can all thank you, we can expect that taxes will be more stable over the next coming years, provided that the federal impacts that we receive in the next while aren't huge. So I don't know yet what that's the wild card that's out there. We did the spending bill. So in other words, we normally in a what I'm told is that the spending bill is the very last bill that goes out at the end of the year. We did that one 6 weeks, 8 weeks into the session, So we, because of the anticipation of things coming from the federal government, we decided to get our budget in line and get it moving forward so we have something to refer to. The yield bill, which goes right with this spending bill, the yield bill is the bill that sets the property taxes for the state of Vermont. So and the yield bill is the way we pay for education currently, through the yield bill. Most of our education system is paid for through property taxes, and those taxes each year are set by the yield bill. So those taxes have already been set, and we can see town by town. Not everything's in complete order yet, but we can see town by town what's going to happen, and I expect towns in this part of the state, especially in the Wyndham Southeast Supervised Union, are not going to see huge jumps going forward like we have in the last. So. And the education bill going forward that passed, the education bill will begin to change how we use property taxes in the state. I don't know if you're all aware that the way that the school budgets are paid for now is that every town in Vermont, or every school district in Vermont now, builds a budget, it gets approved locally, and those budgets just all get funneled up to the state, and they all get added up, and then it's up to the legislature to just come up with what the total is. The legislature has no say and doesn't have any real oversight in controlling costs or anything like that. So one school district can spend exorbitantly, and another school district, in order to reduce taxes or lower taxes, can spend from an education point way down. Huge inequities all over the state, and we just pay the bill. That's how it has been working. That's all going to change in the next few years as part of this education bill that you might have heard about. So that's about stabilizing costs. And I don't know the answers to everything now. I'm happy to dig in anywhere anybody has questions and try to learn what I can. But I think that things are going to get a little bit more stabilized than they have been for the last few years. Education transformation is the other big H. 454 is the bill number. It doesn't have an act yet, but we'll be hearing a lot about that, an act number. It'll be assigned one soon. A number of voters here in the district have reached out to me to ask, express their concerns about this bill. It's been a long process to get it where it is. It's complicated. It's a multi-year process. It reaches in at many levels, and it even talks about how we pay for taxes. We're going to change the way we pay for taxes, what property taxes mean, and we're also going to start building up, I guess you might call them construction. There's going to be a construction fund developed eventually to address the incredible amounts of infrastructure that has failed over the last number of years because communities just haven't been able to deal with it. The Wyndham Southeast Supervised Union has done fairly well, actually, when it comes to that kind of thing. But that education transformation bill is huge, and expect to watch it. I don't anticipate that the Guilford School is going to close. If anybody says that they're worried about that, I don't think that's going to happen. We're well within the minimums, well within the guidelines that are being set up now. And because it's a 3 or 4 year process, and there are lots of caveats and lots of carve-outs and lots of opportunities for hearings, that kind of thing, I think we're still going to be developing this bill as we go along. Healthcare. It's outrageous. The healthcare system in the state of Vermont, maybe you already have a feeling about this, it's just incomplete. It's in crisis. We have 14 hospitals in the state of Vermont. 9 are on the brink of closing. And with that, also we have one public insurance company in the state of Vermont, only one. Most states have choices. We only have Blue Cross Blue Shield if you're not on Medicare or Medicaid. And we don't know what's happening with Medicare and Medicaid here in the short order. That may change dramatically. So there's any number of things that could happen to the healthcare system. I think we need to watch very carefully. I will say that I'm spearheading a small group of people that are looking at the notion of, we call it WTF, watching the feds. And we're getting ready to build relationships with the states and learn from other legislatures what they're dealing with in healthcare issues as we go forward, because we expect that other states are suffering just like Vermont is, and what will happen, what are some options that might happen once we get through all of this stuff once we go forward. All that said, 3 important bills were passed this to begin to affect cost in the state of Vermont for healthcare, and to begin to control costs, and to begin to revamp the entire healthcare system in the state of Vermont. Much more authority has been given to the Vermont Community Review Board. I can't remember all these titles. That's the one of the things not on top of yet. VCRB. And they've been given a lot more oversight for being able to overhaul and really hold hospitals and community networks accountable to their citizens. So we'll start to see changes there. Okay, then housing. I just want to say in the briefest sort of way that there was a big bill that got passed that if it works right, it's a collaborative program that towns can use. So Guilford could see it as an opportunity down the road for the town of Guilford to enter into relationship with other entities like a developer or a conservancy board or a planning commission. That all of these groups could enter in relationship together, and there are these tools that are being set up in order to develop housing in communities. So keep an eye on that. Let's see, what's its number? I don't know the number. Yes, S127. There it comes. S120. It now has, and it just got an act number 69. It just got Act 69. So watch for that. That might be something that Guilford might be able to use as it begins to think about providing, developing more housing. It's a tool that's available to individual developers. It's a tool that's available to towns. It's available to organizations like conservancy boards. It's meant to be collaborative, and it's meant to really give a jump start to housing. In the state of Vermont, to just get up to speed, we probably need about 32,000 housing starts in the next 3 years. It's an exorbitant number. Can't possibly do it. But this bill, this act, should help the state of Vermont jumpstart between 3,000 and 7,000 housing starts in the next few years. So that's something. It's not solving the entire problem. The entire problem is a 25-year-old problem. It's not just something that's happened in the recent while. So there have been a lot of adjustments there, and I know that the housing concerns are still going to be going forward. There's still more to be done. And then I'll just say that there are signs about collaboration. There were 50 new, I'm a member of 50 freshmen. So a third of the House is new this year. In the previous 2 years, 50 were also new. So that means about 2/3 of the House has served 3 years or less. So I really look at the old timers, and there are some people there's one person that's been in the House for 40 years. Amazing. And there are plenty of others that have been in for 20, 25, getting on toward 30 years. And it's amazing to watch them, how they work, how they think, the understanding they have about how bills and everything move forward, the wisdom they have. So I spend a lot of time looking at those folks. So I will say that just so you know, that I conduct every month, I have what's called a Wyndham One. This is the district Wyndham One. I have a Wyndham One meetup either in Guilford or in Vernon. I'm not going to do it for the summer, so June, July, and August I won't, but I'll start back up in September. And those usually gather about 20, 25 people who come just sharing their interests and concerns with me. Sometimes it's fewer than that. People can contact me anytime. Just have to type my name into the... Once I became a politician, I hate that word, but anytime you type my name into Google, that's the first thing that pops up now. Everything is marked heavily toward that. So people can find my website, ways to reach me if they just go there. I have a seatmate in the house, and we all are sort of sitting next to someone. That's how it works in this kind of... You've been to the State House, this beautiful room we get to work in. And my seatmate happens to be the newest representative from Brattleboro, Ian Goodnow. And so he and I have started a podcast. It's called the Zon Ian Podcast. and we had our first one go up about 10 days ago. And it's a hoot. It's just crazy. And we have another one scheduled for June 30th. June 30th. It'll
What's
pop
on?
up.
Who's covering that? I mean, who's carrying that? Is that like
BCTV.
Spotify? Oh, BCTV.
Yeah. Johnny there at BCTV
Cool.
is the producer, so he's actually on the show too. And he just asks the questions, and people are getting to know what we're doing. So people can learn a little bit about that if they want. That's going to come out about every 2 weeks. We hope we can kind of keep it going.
That's cool.
And I will say it's a complete, utter honor for me to serve. I've learned a hell of a lot, and there's so much more for me to learn. But I really, I try to listen carefully when people reach out to me, and I try to carry forward what people are saying. And even though I may not vote the way a particular voter wants me to vote, I'm thinking about Guilford and Vernon all the time when I'm doing my work. So, all right, I don't know if you have any questions, but that's my quick report. And going forward, I'll be doing this more often, or again. So tell me if there are other ways you want me to talk to you, things you want me to tell you about. If that's
Nice
good.
job.
Yeah.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
So do you know, voting on the school budget on town meeting day, is that an individual town decision? Or because we used to do it in
Yeah.
Guilford,
Yeah.
and now we don't?
Now it's part of it because we're part of a district. So now it's done at the district level. And so
So we'd have to go to a district meeting to vote?
yes, exactly.
Not
Okay.
on town meeting day.
Not,
Okay,
and yeah, there's usually, and one of the things that's happening in this education bill is we're gonna start seeing, what we know as the Wyndham Southeast Supervisor Union is probably, in the next 3 to 5 years, going to expand some. And so the district will probably become larger. It's not clear exactly what that looks like and feels like. But so, and the governance of how that all works, who serves on those boards and how those kinds of decisions get made. One of the big concerns that I've heard a lot about is with the education bill is loss of local control. And it's very real, and I think it's very, needs to be considered carefully. But I think that what this bill is looking at, my view is that well, in Vermont, because in order for us to handle economically what we're doing, we're gonna have to begin adjusting what it means for local control for us. And it's
yeah, I would think, like, the layperson going to the district-wide meeting, the numbers must be so huge, and you talked about inequities, per region or town. So it's just really hard to grasp those huge numbers.
Well, one thing that's going to be very different in the future that might make a difference is right now, for instance, Wyndham Southeast Supervisor Union, and there are 3 or 4 other districts here in Wyndham County. They each produce a budget that their voters then decide on. And that budget is based on a lot of different things. We're going to switch, this bill is going to switch that around to what's called a foundation formula. And basically every student in the state of Vermont with weights and for certain kinds of issues, but every student's going to have a certain tuition number that's going to be assigned to them. And basically the way a budget, I'm being way simplistic, but the way a budget will be built is a school district will have this much to spend because there are this many students with this many student weight, this many student tuitions.
So like per capita.
Yeah, kind of per capita. And so that becomes the total number. And then you figure out how to build your budget. And so it's a different way of doing the budgeting process. And I think it's going to actually, it should make everything in a district much more kind of manageable. We heard from a lot of the principals associations, school district associations, saying they actually would like to not have to wrestle with each town because, these school districts in every town is different. And can you imagine a school district that spends such care to build a budget, and then depending on the town, the voters can go, no, we're not spending that kind of money. They just slash it. And then the principals and the school and the administrators have to figure out then how are we building a budget. This is going to change all that so that there's going to be a value that every student's going to carry with them.
So there's a base to
Yeah,
go from.
yeah, and
build
then,
off.
yeah, and so that alone should begin to make things a little more equal around the state. But we'll see how it all plays out.
Thank you.
It sounds like, again, from what I've read, more and more consolidation, bigger organizations.
Yeah,
And okay, that's sort of the way of the world. I sort of get that part. where I start having real concern is that it's gonna be harder and harder for citizens to participate.
Yeah,
Because then you're trying to get involved with a big organization
right.
that's harder for
Yeah.
a lot of people.
Yeah, I hear that, and I think that I'm going to describe the scale that I think we're moving to.
Okay.
The governor, his plan called for 5 districts,
Hmm.
which was just completely unworkable.
Right.
It got to the point of having some districts would have 12 or 14,000 students in them.
Right.
This bill calls for a minimum size district to have about 4,000 students in it. And I think our district, the Wyndham Southeast Supervisor District, and again, I could be wrong, but I think it has about 24 or 2,800 students in it.
Yeah.
So if you just imagine that we're going to probably have to expand a little bit in order to reach that minimum, that's kind of what we're looking at. I'm just doing that as a mental exercise, not saying who's going to be involved or whatever.
I'm thinking more of the school board. The school board
Yeah.
is gonna end up being much more difficult for the average
Individuals.
citizen
Yeah.
to participate.
Yeah, and I think that that's all got to be looked at very carefully as we go forward. It's not defined yet, and the state, the House hasn't been interested or hasn't been willing to try to, wants to give as much freedom to communities to do this kind of building and shaping as we possibly can, just so that kind of voice is not lost, and not just presume that, okay, here's going to be a board of 5 people up here,
Right.
now vote.
Right.
It's very, very complicated, and I think that every single, it's been amazing for me to watch. Every single town in the state of Vermont has a different take on this whole thing. And the going thing is, there's something in this bill that every single person could hate. Somebody can find something to hate in this bill. And and so I'm grateful for the studies and the contingencies and the reevaluation opportunities that are in this thing so that we can try to get it right as we go forward.
Oh, I have a question. This is Miranda here. Our schools in the district have had leadership councils. At least the elementary schools have. And I'm not sure in what way a leadership council, which I guess is composed of school, of teachers and staff and some community members, to sort of communicate and advocate for their own schools within a district. I wonder whether there was any mention of school to school or school and community members communicating, people who are on the ground in the school and are intimate stakeholders.
Yeah, I think that that's certainly been an awareness, and that there are communities that use this model and there are communities that don't, and there are communities that use that model to do all their governing and their community model. There's every kind of model out there in the state of Vermont. So I think that, again, I don't think the legislature is going to be too keen on saying this is what has to happen about in each community. But I think what I'm understanding is that the legislature is setting up large frames. Basically, these school districts are going to be municipalities, like towns, or like the communication union district. They're going to have taxing authority, and they're going to function in like municipalities. So there's an incredible number of just legal issues that are related to. As the chair of the Education Committee said at one point, I'm not sure that there are enough lawyers in the state of Vermont to process us through all the things that need to happen in short order. So that's part of the reason that there's been a request for more and more time to do this. So it's a 3 to 5 year thing. The governor wanted it all done in about a year or 2, and it's just not even possible to consider because of all the many changes. All right.
Thank you, Zon.
Thanks.
Thank
All right,
Zon.
you guys. Thanks
Nice
very
to
much.
see you.
Yeah. Thank you.
job.
It's an honor.
Likewise.
Okay, so our next order of business is the resident request, because we moved it
Yeah.
to new business. Actually, we have old business. Is there any old business?
There's no old.
Okay, so there's no old business. So once again, the resident request, from Catherine Partington and Daniel Cornguth, at Weatherhead Hollow, and this is this pertains to a retaining wall. It's a little complicated, so I think that we're gonna have different people involved to talk about what's going on. We received a letter, the select board received a letter, and Jim has talked to both parties. There's a lot of different information that we have gathered. So I'm not sure if we will be taking an action on this tonight, but we're gonna hear basically what this is about.
Yeah, so I can characterize the letter that the select board received last week from Catherine and Daniel, who are residents at Weatherhead Hollow, and they have a barn that is very close to it maybe is in the right of way. But there's a retaining wall that is next to their barn. And they feel that the wall should be repaired, at least with help from the town, because it is now damaged by rainwater. It is getting old and it's falling apart a little bit. They have owned the property since 2012, and they have an Act 250 permit that they're concerned may have issues with this retaining wall, that they would like a specific fix. They spoke to Danny when Danny was here, and now they talked to Jimmy too. And I think both of their solution may have been to add some concrete blocks, but the landowners do not like that idea. And so they want to work with the town on something different. They are concerned that they're going to be in violation of their Act 250 permit, and they request the select board come up with a plan to help rebuild this wall. I put some pictures in the select board folder so you can see what that looked like, and Jimmy took the pictures, so maybe Jimmy could have some words for the select board and your recommendation on what to do here.
So I can tell you, just for clarification, I've never talked to Catherine, and I've talked twice briefly to Daniel, but I do have a string of emails back and forth, and the original phone call that I got, he had several points, which I wrote down. He wanted he said it was my wall because it's in the right of way. And that Dan had agreed, he had worked with Dan in the past, and Dan had agreed to fix it. And that he wanted it aesthetically pleasing, and that it was historic. So I waited like 12 days to respond, and went down because I wanted to go down and see the weather and see the wall. And I looked at it several times. And I came to Erica and asked if there was any historic like designation in the town or anything. And to her knowledge, there was not. There is a law, a state law I read somewhere, that if a historic, like a big oak tree or a cemetery or a stone wall is in the right of way, that I'm not allowed to touch it. I have to work around it. But that's not the same thing as maintaining it. And so I also contacted Dan and asked him if what he planned to do, and he said he was not rebuilding the wall. There was a hole, and he was going to put a couple concrete cubes in that and stabilize that. And I said, okay. So then I went down in a couple of different pouring rainstorms, and it's quite obvious that the rain comes right off the corner of the barn roof and created this erosion. There's no gutter on there, and the roof is also in the right of way. And I said, Dan, if I cut that roof back 2 feet, there's no erosion to that wall. And this wall doesn't look early 1900s, which he told me it was. And I'm like, it just doesn't. I sold stone wall to build walls for 20 years, and I've seen a lot of walls. Doesn't make me an expert, just my opinion. And I said, your roof has created this issue. I'm not sure. I'll fix the erosion, but I don't build stone walls. Made that very clear. And then he asked me, instead of putting concrete cubes in there, if I would put a couple of stones instead, roughly the same size. And I said, because he didn't have equipment to lift that. And I said, yeah, we could do that. You know, that's not a big deal. And then the next email I got was like a page long, and he had ordered a truckload of stone. And then 2 days later, I got another email that he added to the pile, and he was going to have an excavator on site and a mason to tell me how to set the stones. And I'm like, that's back to wall building. So then I sent him a statement, which, again, my opinion, but I'd like to read that, and say, for my part, and this is a 2-week conversation because I didn't want to just shut anybody off or anything like that. The only thing I agreed to was placing 2 stones instead of concrete blocks in the erosion hole caused by your roof. I did discuss wall building with you, but said from the outset, I don't build walls, not stone walls. And the highway department does not build stone walls, and that I would stay in my lane, and that he could come to the select board if he didn't agree with my assessment. And I think that's what they're doing now. And I suggested, if you're not sure on how to build a wall, that you hire a professional. And that was the last.
I have a question
Yep.
for you, Jim. Is that wall affecting the road at all? Like,
I don't-
if the wall's gone, what's up with the road?
Okay, so the hole in the wall, it comes off the roof. There's about 2 feet. It's created a sinkhole. And the road's another 2 to 3 feet, but it seems to be eating itself that way. And I did mention that if there was a gutter on there, it wouldn't even started. And they've been working on this building for years. I saw that going on. And Daniel wasn't interested in whose fault it was, just that we should do this wall together.
Do you think the road is in danger from any damage to this wall?
I don't think the road's in danger. I think that wall is, it's coming down and it's eating straight down and falling into his yard. But I don't see it going the other way,
Okay.
So,
in my opinion.
so originally you were talking about just taking some concrete blocks and where that stone wall, basically take the stone out and put the blocks in.
We would create a flat pad with what was there. You know, we'd take the backhoe and create a flat pad and stack them. They're 2,200 pounds. 2 of them is 4,400. And the major problem is, and there's 2 big stones on top of that wall now that are not native. So, and Daniel said that he put them there. So he knew in a rainstorm, that's to negate the energy of that water. You know, that water coming off the roof in one spot is what created that hole. I mean, and I went in the rainstorm and stood in the road. There's a little knoll there, and the amount of water coming down that knoll is only 30 feet, and it was hardly anything. But it's pouring in one spot, and that's where the hole is.
As you said, that building has been worked on for ages.
Yeah.
Was the roof redone in the process? Is that changed?
I don't know. I haven't been here that
Okay.
long enough,
Alright.
but The yard, I asked about that. I mean, the rest of the roof pours into that barnyard. And there's plenty of new PVC pipe and all that. Because truthfully, if there was a gutter on that building, we're not talking about it.
Right.
That's what created this,
Right.
and apparently, it's been doing it for a while. So then I was at a stalemate, and I said, "Hey, you're free to go over my head."
So we did consult with our attorney about this week, and basically the town, it's not the town's responsibility to repair private property located in a right of way, particularly fences, mailboxes, or barns. So that's a rule.
Yep, our attorney advises that it's not the town's responsibility. Even though the stone wall is within the right of way, the property owners own the fee title to the property underlying the town's right of way. And they own the wall. The wall is not part of the highway, and the town therefore is not responsible for maintenance of the wall. The property owner is responsible, and responsible to comply with their Act 250 permit. The town does not repair other private property located in the right of way, such as fences or mailboxes, like Tara said. In fact, there is no general legal authority that would authorize a Vermont municipality to maintain private property, and it would be improper for the town to spend taxpayer dollars to maintain a private property owner's property.
And there's nothing that the town has done that made that wall deteriorate. Is that correct?
No, it's not like truck vibration or anything.
Right.
It's the corner of that roof going straight down in one spot.
And even if it was water runoff from the road, that's still not the town's responsibility legally.
Okay.
That's been an issue for many Vermont towns, and that's been found to not be a town responsibility either. There's a little more information that the attorney offers, and that is that Act 250 permit is not a historic site, so the town doesn't need to determine whether modern concrete blocks would violate the permit, because the town is not responsible for work proposed and will not participate in the wall repair. So that is the attorney's suggestion to the select board. And
Any more discussion about that?
I guess, can I make a
Wanna say
motion?
something?
Do you wanna make a motion of some
Um,
kind? I think the motion
we could
should
either make a
be-
motion
Oh, no.
to,
Miranda's muted.
we could either make a motion to send the letter if we approved it, or to table it and gather more information.
I would make the motion too. I did some research on it as well, and there's a Vermont statute, 19 VSA 310, which obligates towns, I'm reiterating part of this, but it obligates towns to maintain public highways and bridges, but does not authorize the maintenance of private structures within the right of way. And engaging in such activities could violate the public purpose doctrine and the limitations imposed by the Dillon Rule, which I had no idea what was that, so I had to look it up. But the Dillon Rule, which is, Vermont is one of like 8 states in the country that operates under it, means that towns in Vermont can only do what state law clearly says they can do. So if a power isn't written into the law, the town doesn't have it. And the public purpose doctrine says that public money can only be spent for public benefits, something that serves the whole community or the general public. So that's why if a town were to spend taxpayer money to repair or maintain a private structure, like a fence, a wall, a mailbox that mainly benefits the private property owner, not the public, that kind of spending would likely be seen as not serving a public purpose and could violate the doctrine. So it's kind of just, tax dollars are meant to fund public services.
Well, I think we should make a motion to send a letter to Catherine and Daniel stating that we are not responsible for fixing the wall.
Right.
I would agree.
The town is not responsible.
Correct.
Sorry.
So, you moved.
Yes,
I'll second.
okay? Veranda?
Do we want to have a public conversation on this?
We could, you wanted to?
Yeah, is anybody?
I saw Daniel,
I
since
could,
I'm on Zoom, I thought I saw Daniel raising his hand. Did you want to speak, or you or Catherine?
I would like to speak.
they can go ahead.
There's-
Go
Oh,
ahead.
hello.
Hello.
That was an interesting conversation. And if I may, there is some, from my part, it was my hope that in the process of repairing this wall, that there would be town involvement, not the least of which is because due to the extreme proximity and narrow thresholds that we're dealing with, any activity can absolutely affect the road. And inactivity, although I don't mean to contradict Jim, I believe that inactivity would undermine the road. And that this retaining wall 100% affects the integrity of that public byway. That being said, that's my opinion. If I may, I was hoping that throughout this entire conversation, that most of it had to do with making sure that basically no one stepped on anyone else's toes, in the sense that I would posit that it is, sure, it's ostensibly my wall, but it's my wall holding a town road in place. Jim put a lot of emphasis on the rain coming off of my roof causing the erosion. Again, I don't want to really debate how much the cause of the degradation of the wall was my roof versus rain water running off the road. I told Jim the very first second he mentioned gutters, I said, I'm 100% happy to put up a gutter. He persisted in mentioning the gutter about 17 more times. I don't mind, and I understand that the rainwater coming off my roof may be a factor in the degradation of the wall. And for my part, putting up a gutter is a no-brainer. There was never a gutter on there since I've owned this building. And I didn't put those stones on top of that wall to divert water. I put those stones on top of that wall to hold it together.
And to prevent human bodies from falling through the hole. Hi, this is Catherine. And I'll just jump in here. I think one thing that I am concerned about, we're happy to repair the wall if that's what the town decides. We want to be able to collaborate with you, because my understanding with the wall is that as high as it is, it also has to be as deep. Our wall is 5 feet high.
6 feet high.
And it's right next to the white line, which means that it's going to go 6 feet under the road. And therefore, this is something that needs to be collaboratively discussed.
At the very least.
And, you know, regardless of town funds and all of that. So that's really why we're here. And the issue around the historic preservation, I think that there was some misunderstanding that is something that we have to follow legally, because we have an Act 250 permit with the state of Vermont. So that's why we care about that historic integrity. It's part of our permit and our legal responsibility moving forward.
And
but anyway, that's just a concern we have. So I do think this is a little bit more of a further discussion. Sure. I'm not sure what the next step is, but that's where we're coming from here.
And furthermore, on the subject of the historicity of the wall, we spoke to the owners, the previous owners of this property,
the daughter of the previous owners,
who purchased it in the late 1960s, early 1970s. They didn't touch the wall. They didn't build the wall. The wall was what it was at that time. That's why I suggested that it was from the mid to early 1900s, because it was probably under the auspices of Joe Borkowski that wall was built. It could have been older than that, but probably not. I've seen the other stuff that Joe Borkowski did during his tenure here, and it seemed in keeping with his practices. But ultimately, I guess I will just, there's not a whole lot to say,
Yeah.
except that I had an arrangement with Dan Zombrowski. My understanding of that arrangement may now be different than what Jim's understanding of that understanding was with Dan Zombrowski. I want to just really clarify. My understanding was that Dan said to me that if we had stones that were similar in proportion to the waste blocks, that both Dan and Jim did propose to only use waste blocks, as well as have proper fill and proper drainage to prevent further erosion. That could, in my opinion, absolutely compromise the integrity of the road and actually present a hazard to people who are traveling on the road. I don't think it's safe to say that the vibrations of vehicles on the road has no impact on that wall. I think that that is a debatable subject. Therefore, it is in fact road traffic, in my opinion, that it also contributes to the degradation of the road as well as erosion. Let's just say 90% of it comes from the actual barn. I didn't build the barn over the road. I have not changed the profile or the footprint of the barn in relationship to the road. I inherited this property and I have tried to be a steward of this property. So within that, I'm going to wrap it up. I really appreciate that you may decide, okay, Daniel, it's all on you. And even if it's all on me,
I don't think it can be because of the width of
we
the wall
absolutely
underneath the
have
road.
to
We
in
have to
some way
But yeah, we
collaborate
should wrap it up.
with how it is actually going to be repaired. And that will at the very least require a little bit of town resources in being present so that the wall can be repaired properly. There is no way, because of the close proximity of this wall to the road, there is effectively no way to replace it or repair it without actually interacting with, I would say, town interests, town concerns, for better or for worse. With that being said, it sounds to me like you guys have decided to wash your hands of it and say,
Can you just hit the, no, they haven't voted yet, but this is the public section.
okay,
Yeah.
this is my
Yeah.
contribution and my perception.
Yeah. Cool.
Thank you. Steve, did you have something to say?
Well, it sounds like the Dillon rule even negates what Dan Zombrowski was gonna do. But it was 2 cement blocks and that translated into 2 stones that were gonna be put in. It's gotten bigger, it's like a bad piece of meat, the more you chew it, the bigger it gets. So the thing that happens now is that if there's gonna be a start over and have a discussion about what can be done or what is able to be done under the Dillon rule to the wall, if it's a private wall, I think it has to go back then to a discussion or something about how is it really being impacted by the road? Or does it impact the road? Because otherwise it seems like they're on their own.
Well, it sounds like whatever happens, there does need to be some type of collaboration because it is touching the road. Even though I had stated before that the town is not responsible for fixing private property. And Daniel did say that the roof doesn't have a gutter and that maybe the erosion, 90% of it was caused by that. And I don't know if that might be part of the Act 250 to get permission to change the roof, but that's something that definitely needs to be done. So I think that I would like to make a motion to table this and gather some more information, talk to Jim about what a collaboration looks like.
Could I make
Yeah.
another comment? So, in our discussion, I did talk with Daniel if I was starting a wall from scratch and made it clear that I would not, and explained pipe and fabric and that. In this case, there's no room. He's not starting from scratch and cutting into the asphalt to build a proper wall. There's no room there. you can restack that wall and hope it goes another 20 or 30 years or whatever. Or you can move that wall into his property. But there's no room there
And what about
to do a by the book stone wall. There is no room there. And it never was.
And the hole, is there actually a hole that will now need to be filled with stone for drainage and additional material?
There is a hole, yes, because it's washed between the large rocks and washed the gravel down, and now the small stones have fallen. And I would disagree. Those two big rectangular stones were to stop that water from pounding and making the hole bigger. And he did say that if we fixed the wall, he would put a gutter on there. If the gutter was there 2 years ago, we're not having this discussion. So I'm
Yeah, I mean, I'm regretfully, I mean, I'd like to jump in and help them. I think we're always open to conversation, but, we're guided by policy, we're guided by Vermont statute. The law is really clear as it's written. We just can't use public money, labor, or equipment to repair private property. I was talking to DNR today, and the question was, well, what would the solution be, for example, if the wall collapses and affects the town road? And so here's how that works. If the wall collapses into the traveled portion of the road, say on the pavement or the shoulder, the town would remove the debris to reopen the road, but the property owner would still be responsible for repairing or rebuilding the wall. The town cannot take on that work or pay for it. If the collapsed wall undermines the road bed, say it causes the edge of the road to erode, the town can repair the road itself, but not the private wall that caused the problem. So it comes down to, it doesn't really matter why the wall is eroding, whether it's rain, roof, or any other reason. It's just to still, regrettably, as much as we would all love to jump in, including Jim, whatever the reason is, it's not relevant because it's still a private structure, and under Vermont law, the town is responsible for maintaining the highway, not the private property. I mean, we could table it and talk about it for 3 weeks, but it doesn't change VSA 19-111 or whatever it is. Unfortunately, I would love to be able to be collaborative, but we can't in this one. And then if we're collaborative in this one, what happens on the next one? You just can't. If you're guided by statute and policy, you have to stick with it, because otherwise you just open up an avenue and now you got a highway, As hard as those decisions are to make, and I would love to be able to go, hey, we'll help you out, but we just can't.
And what about moving forward with collaborating when they do fix the wall? I mean, don't you think that we don't need any input because it's under the road?
Kristen suggested that we could reach an agreement with Daniel to have Jimmy come and look at the site when he's doing construction, each day, to make sure that it's okay for the road. Or plans, if he's got plans ahead of time, to approve those plans before he starts construction. That is the kind of collaboration that I think that she is.
And unfortunately for me, that he cannot move any soil back towards the asphalt because there is no room there, and it's stable right now. So you can remake the wall as it was and hope for the best, but you cannot make a from the scratch proper stone wall because you can't move any dirt towards that road because you could collapse that road, which we just paved.
And
that's where the big blocks, I could take a backhoe, build a flat, and with the amount of weight, we do it all the time, of large stones, but it's not proper, but stop the erosion, and if it did again, we do it again. Commonly, we just did one last week at Dennis Franklin's, and it's in front of their house, and I respect that. And that's why I tried to help. We're in the helping business. We commonly take 8 to 12 inch riprap in a 10-wheeler and dump it till it stops rolling. And that water can pour in there for years, and it's not going to come back towards the road or anything else. That would be unacceptable to fill their barnyard with that. That would be crude. But as far as stopping the erosion, that's what I do. I don't build stone walls, and this wall cannot be built properly because there's no room there unless they give up land towards there. And it's actually in a right of way. I mean, technically, if you measured from the center of the road, the town could do that, but we don't build walls.
So would Jim assisting or during site visits, would that violate anything like giving time, which is money, to personal property situation?
I have no idea. I would have to rely on Kristen for that, correct?
Yeah, and that was her suggestion,
Yeah.
that just request that the town have supervisory.
Which I think we would want to do anyway, correct? On any road that had a possibility of a washout or
Because it's
erosion.
still a road,
Still.
no, it's still a town road.
Yeah. And that's a class 2 road. I mean, that's a connecting road. It's just you gotta, you have to, you would want some oversight on it.
That's
Actually, that's in the Vermont statute as well. We're charged with oversight and maintenance on that road. I think I brought that up at the last select board meeting. So, yeah, I mean, just, hands are tied on this.
And we do give permission for private people to work in our right of way. They're supposed to ask if they're gonna work in it, but that doesn't mean we do, every time we do a
Right.
driveway, we give the landowner a culvert, they put it in, then we maintain it after that because it's water management.
So in whatever they end up doing with the wall, what oversight do you need? What do you have to do?
Actually, make sure they don't dig towards the road.
Okay, that's it.
That's it.
That's really it.
Do not-
Okay.
No, because it's a messed up old timey situation. You can't dig towards the road, and I just heard that comment.
All
You
right,
just
so
can't
that's
do
it.
it.
But you
Okay.
said, your opinion was that it's not affecting the road.
No, I think it's gonna continue to eventually, but it goes right off that corner of that roof and into the barnyard. I don't see any signs of it eating towards the road. Could it someday as rocks fall out? Because as the small gravel and small rocks fall out, erosion, look at the Green River ever since Irene.
Right.
Those banks in Halifax, every time it rains, send a little more downstream and they eat back into the hill. So could it potentially? Yeah, if zero was done, is it right now? No. So I don't know what the answer is, but I'm not an engineer either.
Right. Miranda, do you have any opinion on this?
Well, it seems to me that that the property owners have spoken about their willingness to put up a gutter, and it seems like that would prevent what Daniel said was 90% of the impact of the kind of difficult rains that we've been having. And so I'm glad that Daniel and Catherine had a chance to have their say, but I also don't feel as if it's the town's responsibility to have more than the simplest involvement. And I imagine that if Catherine and Daniel hired a reputable wall builder to supervise the work, that if they needed, volunteer support to hand people stones or something, that neighbors would come and help them. That's all I have to say about it.
So I think that I would like to go back to the original motion.
I'd be comfortable with that.
To send a letter to Catherine and Daniel stating that the town is not responsible for fixing this problem.
I'll second that.
Okay?
Yeah.
All in favor, Miranda?
Aye.
Chip?
Aye.
Aye.
Tara says aye. Okay, moving on to, the next subject is the internal financial control checklist per 25 VSA dash 571D. There's an action on the table for this, and this is an annual checklist that Ellie goes through. Ellie, do you wanna talk about it? Or we can just,
necessarily.
okay, you don't have to.
As
You
you
don't
said,
have to.
You don't have to.
So it's basically what everyone does in the office. There's a whole list. Do they do this? Do they not do this? And who does it?
Right, and it's really to point
Checks and
out checks and
balances.
balances between staff and responsibilities. So to, I think I mentioned this at one town meeting, is to make sure that one person doesn't, open the mail, receive the money, deposit the money, and enter it into the system. There's other people involved in it so that more than one person knows, like for instance, there was just a $10,000 check that came through the office. And, to make sure also, like with payables, that there's more than one person looking at a bill to make sure it's coded correctly. And after everything's entered, there's review of all the entries, that kind of thing. So again, it's the checks and balances that we have within the office to make sure things are entered correctly, deposits are made correctly, etc. That make sense?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
And most of us have seen this before.
Yes.
So I'd like to make a motion to accept, there was a but, to accept the internal financial control checklist. Is there a second?
I'll second that. Yes, I can.
Thank you. All in favor, Veranda?
Aye.
Chip?
Aye.
Mike? And Tara says aye. All right, next is the fiscal year 2026 budgeted employee pay rates. These were already voted on at the town meeting. There's a 3% increase. So we're basically, it's just an action to accept it. And I'd like to make a motion to accept the fiscal year 2026 budgeted employee pay rates. Is there any discussion?
I would second it.
Okay, and then discuss?
Yeah, that's
All right. Is there any discussion? Nope.
You guys saw the document, there's a
I did.
few exceptions being a couple of one person that just started, this doesn't apply to, and the library had a few different things, but those were all approved at town meeting too.
Yep.
Okay. All in favor, Veranda,
aye.
Chip,
Aye.
Mike, and Tara says aye. Next is the RFP for engineering on Fitch Road Bridge, and what we need to do is we need to request to have an RFP go out.
Yes, just
So,
authorize Erica to.
yep, so I'd like to make a motion to authorize Erica to send out an RFP for engineering on the Fitch Road Bridge. Any discussion?
I just wanna
Have to have a second.
remind, did you second?
I'll second if somebody else hasn't yet.
Okay, I just wanna explain what this is. Last meeting, we got a extension for a structures grant that we got a couple of years ago for the Fitch Road Bridge, and now this is the beginning of doing engineering work on that. First thing to do is issue an RFP.
Okay. So that was our discussion.
That's the discussion.
All in favor, Miranda, you want a second?
Sure.
Okay. All in favor, Miranda,
Aye.
Chip,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
and Tara says aye. Next is also another action, potentially, to repair, a repair estimate for the library exterior stairs.
I can describe this a bit.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, so we got an estimate from Kyle and Chris Parker for $5,700 to fix the stairs on the library, which have needed that work done for a couple of years. It's part of the capital needs assessment actually that was done in 2019. And my proposal for the select board to get this work done is to create a capital project out of all of the projects that are supposed to be done this year on the library. They're all in the asset management schedule. There's a list of a few. There's windows, lighting, the cellar door is the next thing probably. That's in pretty bad shape. And then interior doors, a filter for the furnace. And the total of all of these jobs, including this porch repair, porch and stairs repair, is $23,324. And I worked with Bonnie, the auditor, and she said that that's a good use of the capital fund, and that combining the smaller projects into one capital project is a good way to go about that. And it comports with all of Guilford's policies about the capital fund and procurement and the asset management program and capitalization all at once.
So I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a separate funding stream for accessibility, and this is a question. And I mean, from what I'm hearing, none of these capital projects will impact making the library ADA compliant. Am I right?
Yes, I think you're right. I do need to, the reason these are all piecemeal is that maybe a door could be involved in their ADA project. So, you know.
Well, the door handles probably
We
would
have
be.
we have to collaborate closely with the trustees on this, and I'm in good regular touch with them. I know that they have an accessibility project that they're just starting, and yes, you're right about the finance for that. They intend to have a different finance thing for that too. So, but these are the items that were on Guilford's capital needs assessment and on our asset management schedule, based on information that we got from the trustees and the librarian over the last few years when we were putting together the schedule.
And so the motion would be to do what?
The motion would be, I think, maybe there would be two. One, to create a capital project out of all of these projects mentioned on the asset management schedule, and two, to start the project by approving this repair on the stairs.
Stairs repair.
Yeah.
So the other thing, my computer crapped out, so I can't see anything. That's okay. But this is kind of a time sensitive thing because camp is starting.
Yes.
So we were unable to get other bids.
Well, I did request one, but I think it's just sort of similar to the last
Everyone's
little
busy.
construction thing I tried to do. A lot of people said, yeah, maybe, and then they didn't. So I think people are just busy, and the Parkers were excited to do this, and I don't know, I think it's reasonable.
And there's also, we have budgeted $150,000 a year for the capital fund, and it doesn't always have to be equipment.
$225.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's also significantly
uh-huh.
lower than the estimate of 8,000, right, originally?
Yeah, I mean,
So-
those were very rough estimates
Right, but
for putting
still
together the schedule,
significantly
but yeah,
lower,
it
so-
is.
So it seems reasonable.
So it sounds like there's two motions on the table. One to create a capital project for the library, so, right?
Yeah, to combine the asset management.
For the asset management.
I would second that.
Okay. Carol.
Did I verbalize it? Right.
You did, yeah.
Didn't. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Tara says aye.
Was there any discussion?
There wasn't.
What was before?
We discussed it
Any
before.
public discussion?
Yeah, if there was any public discussion. Can I go back?
Sure.
So we're gonna open it,
Did somebody have their hand raised?
we're gonna open it back up
Oh,
to
Ellie.
public
Sorry,
discussion.
Sorry, Ellie.
You have to yell. No, I'm kidding.
No, I just wanted to, something Erica hadn't said, what she and I had talked about too, is that, you know, we've been trying to get additional grants for the work there, but
Oh,
we
yes.
haven't gotten any approved yet. But that we're also gonna continue to keep trying to
Yeah.
get additional monies from grants for these projects for this $22,000 so,
Okay. That's good to know.
yeah.
And is there any more discussion regarding this? Okay.
One motion.
All right, so, the other motion, I'd like to make a motion to approve the estimate, to Chris and Kyle Parker for $5,700 for fixing the stairs at the library.
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? I think I'm getting it.
Yeah.
All in favor? I meant
Aye.
Miranda,
Aye.
Yeah.
Mike, and Tara says aye. All right, so we had moved E, which was the resident request, to A, so we've already done that. Is there any other business? No? Let me just write down this. 9. Okay. And how about correspondence?
Oh, I got one.
All right.
I got the annual email asking if there was any law or regulation about walking around naked in Guilford. To which I replied, there is no specific ordinance or statute in Guilford, and state statutes apply. And common sense, please.
Common sense. All right. So,
Great.
is that the motorcycle guy?
No, nobody asked that, no, he just walks.
Okay. There's stairs. Any other correspondence?
No.
Okay.
You don't need to read those actions from the last meeting.
I don't need to read
But
them?
we do need to recount the actions from this meeting if we
Yeah,
can.
I'm working on that. So, that was the last thing. All right, so the actions for this meeting were change the agenda order, approve minutes of the regular readings of 6/9, approve the warrants. We took an action to send a letter to Catherine and Daniel stating that we are not responsible for fixing the wall. We approved the internal financial control checklist per 24 VSA-1571D. We approved the fiscal year 2026 employee pay rates. We approved an RFP request for the Fitch Road repair. We approved an estimate for Chris and Kyle Parker for $5,700 to repair the library stairs.
We created a capital project.
And, yep, that was before that. We created a capital project for library repairs. So those are the actions that we took tonight. Actions to be taken, I think, would be to discuss further with Jim the repair and what his role and our role might be going forward if they're gonna do the repairs so close to the road.
Yeah. And to send a letter.
And to send the letter. Anything else?
Nope.
Anything else, Miranda?
No, I was going to propose that we adjourn.
All right.
I'll second that.
She stole my moment.
Well, I'm in Brooklyn.
Yeah, I know. You want to get out of that New York town. I know.
Okay.
All right. I'll second
It's been
that.
seconded.
Yeah.
Miranda, would you like to adjourn?
Aye.
Chip?
Aye.
I,
And Tara says aye.
Hi.
Great job, Tara.
Good job, Tara.
Thank
Yeah,
you,
really nice
Miranda.
job. Seriously, that's a lot of stuff going on.
we
It's
got
like
more stuff.
air traffic.